Tua Tagovailoa. Mike McDaniel has been such a benefit for him that Brian Flores used to be the head coach of the Dolphins. And Tua, he was on Dan Le Batard's show and was asked about the difference between playing for Brian Flores and Mike McDaniel.
To put it in simplest terms, if you woke up every morning and I told you you suck at what you did, that you don't belong doing what you do, that you shouldn't be here, that this guy should be here, that you haven't earned this right, and then you have somebody else come in and tell you, dude, you are the best fit for this. Like, you are accurate, you are the best whatever, you are this, you are that. Like, how would it make you feel listening to one or the other? You see what I'm saying? And then you hear it, regardless of what it is, the good or the bad. And you hear it more and more, you start to actually believe that.
I'm not used to this kind of honesty, certainly from Tua Tagovailoa. But what he's saying is you show up and you get beat down by your head coach. And then Mike McDaniel, who when he was with us a couple of weeks ago, you could understand he would be Mr. Positivity. He would find the right thing to say to bolster your confidence. Whether he believed it or not, he was trying to build up your confidence level. And Tua, I think, in large part, got that contract because of Mike McDaniel. I think Mike McDaniel is such an offensive-minded, I don't want to say genius, but he's an offensive-minded head coach. And utilizing those receivers, getting two of the fastest receivers in football, and then Tua just has to be quick, be accurate, and not take sacks. That's all we're waiting for with Tua. Stay healthy and get the ball out to those guys. And you don't have to throw 40-yard bombs. This is what Tom Brady did his entire career. Could be 3 yards, 5 yards, 7 yards, occasionally go down the middle of the field. That's what Tua has to do. If you see that the Dolphins have scored an 80-yard touchdown on a pass, chances are it's a 7-yard pass and 73 yards for Tyreek Hill. And Tua got paid. But I still have doubts about Tua later in the season. When they go on the road, the numbers aren't pretty. When he plays in colder weather, the numbers aren't pretty. And you're going to have to win. If you don't win your division, chances are you're going to be going to Buffalo, or maybe you're going to the Jets. You're not going to go to New England as far as a playoff game, but you're going to have to win in maybe a cold weather climate. And Tua hasn't done that. But I do like the honesty that he has, and I certainly understand. That's almost like the old way, the old school way, that they kind of beat you down to build you up. I think we're kind of past that we're like, I know what you're doing. You're yelling at me to deflate me, and then you're going to inflate me, and then I'll do whatever you tell me to do. Coach, thank you, sir. May I have another? See, what's poll question today?
Well, we got a couple of options. We could go with this sort of the topic you were just hitting before. I don't know exactly how to word this the right way, but which coaching style works best?
Oh.
Is it like criticism and tough love, or support and encouragement? How do we word that exactly? To say like, one dude is screaming you're garbage and worthless, you'll never be anything. Oh, that made me so great. Or you're like, no, man, like you're doing well, keep going.
Well, there's part of me that would like to still have a little bit of the old school. But then I know with today, with parents, with kids, you can't do it. You shouldn't do it. But, I kind of grew up on tough love with coaches. And I don't think you need to yell. I never understood that when grabbing your face mask or screaming at you. I would feel bad if I didn't play well. But I think there's a time and place for a little bit of that.
I think it really depends. I think what we've figured out over the years is that it just depends on the person that you're talking to. Not everybody responds the same way to the same thing. It's not really about the coach. It's more about the person the coach is talking to. Because like my son has had, it's sort of like what you were just speaking to. My son has had a coach before he plays soccer, and the coach would be on the sideline, and he would be going, Kieran, calm down! Calm down! Be like, my guy, you realize you're screaming at the top of your lungs telling him to calm down, right? You realize how weird that sounds.
Well, that always bothered me with Bob Knight, that Bob Knight was never under control, but he told you to be under control. And I like, don't you understand here? Like, you're supposed to be under control, then I'll be under control. But when you're yelling, it's not like I go, oh, okay, I'm going to calm down as you're chewing my neck off. Yes, Paulie.
This is a really tough question because at first when I looked at this, you're like, is it Mike McDaniel's style or Brian Flores' style, his old style? They're a year and a half difference in age. Mike McDaniel's not 26. He's 41. And Brian Flores is 43. So they grew up in the same NFL. They just have two different directions. I do agree with you, though. There always has to be some light level of fear for your job, to some level, no matter where you work. You don't want people too terribly comfortable. You want to be positive and get the most out of them. But if they're completely comfortable, I think that's dangerous as well.
But also, it's when you raise your voice. If you don't raise it very often, but when you do, now I have your attention. It's like with my daughters. They know it doesn't happen often. When it does, there's trouble. But if you do it all the time, then you kind of tune that out. But growing up in these coaches, that's what you did. Woody Hayes, he was yelling at you. Bo Schembechler yelling at you. Bob Knight yelling at you. Even Mike Krzyzewski. I went to one practice and I was like, whoa, Coach K, simmer down. But he learned with Bob Knight. I like Mike McDaniel's approach, but it doesn't sound like he's a head coach with all of that encouragement. But if it works for the Dolphins and works for Tua, that's all that matters. It feels like there still has to be that I can be a jerk if I have to be a jerk. I can raise my voice. I can get your attention. But I don't think, the days of slamming your hand into the wall and then you break your hand and then you go, boy, that was stupid.
What are you
I think
doing?
Those days are long. Yeah, I know. I had a coach who did that, and we laughed. It was one of those where you kind of laugh, kind of put your hand over your mouth because you're going, that's stupid. And he hurt his hand. He broke his little finger. Yes, Marvin.
Did you ever hear any stories about Tony Dungy raising his voice?
No.
What was his style to get his guys so motivated and have such great teams when he was playing? He seemed so mild-mannered.
That's the way he is. But once again, if he raised his voice, it's different than the octave that somebody else might be raising their voice. Tony could raise his voice, but in a way that he would be disappointed in you. But I've never heard him yell. Never. Even when we were Football Night in America for 8 or 9 years, never heard him raise his voice. Now, he would deliver a message in a way that he was angry at himself or disappointed in something, but it was never raising his voice. Yeah, Paulie?
That's the guy I was going to bring up. Tony Dungy seems like the first old school new style. When we started having him on before you worked with him, we're like, this guy is so soft-spoken. How does it work? But then there's also the caveat was Tony Dungy, he was a great coach, but he had Peyton Manning, which makes your coaching style seem so much better. The Mike McDaniels, I'm sure he's a very good coach, but having Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle breeds the success. It's like, does your style work or does your personnel and style work?
Yeah. Mike McDaniel, that's a different cat, man. He was chill, funny, sense of humor. Almost felt like he would be the quarterback coach as opposed to the head coach. But if it works, the Giants, the Bears when they had Ditka's yelling at everybody. The Giants with Bill Parcells yelling at everybody. They're just certain coaches. That's why, Saban, I don't know if he yells as much as he just delivers a stinging kind of criticism there. And maybe Belichick the same way.